So I'm going to make my dog a dog collar out of her old dog collar, meaning I like how thin this one is, but it needs to be a little longer. So of course, instead of buying a new one, I figured I'd take this one apart, reuse the hardware, the clips, everything here, and resew her a new one. I know I got to always do things the hard way instead of just going out and buying a new one, but let's see. Stick around to the end to see if I'm successful. So before I get started in cutting this apart, what I did was I actually took pictures of the front, side, and back or inside of the collar so I know and I can tell how the hardware goes back on. Or else this project would be more challenging. All right, so what I'm going to do is just cut this right off. I am sentimental with things. I am, and I'm surprised I'm cutting my dog's first collar, but it's going to be okay. And here we go. So now the most challenging part is choosing the fabric to remake this collar. Before I choose, I almost forgot, I should really measure this. Right, so we have, and it's going to be like a rough measure because I chopped it all up. We have 8, about almost 9 inches. Almost 10. And for argument, 10 and a half. Let's just say 10 and a half. So I'm going to make my new fabric 11 and a half. I'm going to add an inch or maybe even 11 3/4 just to make it longer and more adjustable. So 11 3/4 inches long. I need my new fabric. Right. So here's my choice. I wanted something floral with actual flowers in it, but believe it or not, I did not have that in my stash. So I went with these remnants that I have. And if you know my sewing tutorials or are familiar with them, you'll probably recognize this from my dog Poochie's harness that I made her. And I linked that right here up above if you're interested in watching that. Anyway, I'm going to go with this one right here. So this is actually, or it does actually have a stretch. So I'm going to work with it this way. And it's bright. It's happy. It looks like, as I mentioned in my other tutorials, it reminds me of Poochie the designer's sort of style anyway. So it's so perfect for her. Poochie gets Poochie style. Okay, I'll stop. Let's get started with this. So when I measure the width of my collar, it's about 3/8 of an inch. So my final sewn collar needs to be 3/8 wide, no longer than that. Am I right? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3/8, because it needs to fit into the original hardware. So here's what I'm going to do in order to cut the fabric. I'm going to, with 3/8 of an inch wide of this original collar, I'm going to times it by 4. So that brings me to 1.5 inches. So here's what that means. 3/8 plus 3/8, 6/8, and then it's sort of 12/8, which brings me down to 1.5 inches. I'm going to do it 4 times because this fabric is a little thin. It's not too thin, and I want to actually have it quadrupled so that it's a thick collar, feels thick. And while it's in the adjusters here, it doesn't actually bend. So when you're pulling it through, like this PP webbing is wonderful. It just goes back and forth. There's no bending or buckling of it. So I'm going to do this 4 times, and that's why 3/8, 4 times brings me down to 1.5 inches. Just to explain, some people, need some explanations with measurements. All right, so here we go. I said before 11.5 inches long, and now by 1.5 inches wide, and I'll show you why I'm quadrupling it. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to choose exactly where to draw that rectangle, because I want less black on her collar, just because I like the color black, but I just don't want too much of it on her collar. So depending on where I place that rectangle, of course, I'm going to get more or less of the color. And the stretch goes this way, so I need to draw it this way. I mean, I guess it's It's not so bad. All right, let's experiment. This whole thing is an experiment. Once I sew down, it really won't stretch. Maybe I have to do it this way. All right, let me see. Yeah, we just may. There's so many wonderful colors here. You know what? I'm going to go with the stretch. I took out my fabric ruler and I'm going to line it up here to the selvage edge because I know that's definitely straight. So once I line it up, I think I'm going to go this way to get all the colors. The white, the greens, the pinks, the yellows. I love that. Whatever other color. I hesitated there. I was like, wait, what color do I have? All right, so let's do this. So I said it was going to be 1.5, correct? 1.5. So 1, we're going to stop right there. Think. Okay. And 11 3/4. So we're going to go right up to here. Not using a marker so that it doesn't leak or bleed through. Okay, and just double check. 1, 2, 3, half. Okay. Okay, we're gonna go here. So that's the measurement from one end to the other. But what I'm gonna do on this end, I'm gonna add about 1/4 inch more because, or possibly I'd say maybe 1/2 inch more. And that's because of my 1/4 inch I'm gonna sew when on the ends, to fold over the ends. Does it make sense? Don't worry, keep watching. I'll explain everything. Okay, now I'm going to cut this out. Next, I'm going to press a hem on both sides, on both long ends of 3/8 inch. And for this, I like to use my hem gauge because I do need, I don't want to say exact, but pretty close to exact hems because it needs to fit, remember, in that wonderful, or in that clasp and adjuster. And I measure as I go. And if you love this iron, this is an Olizo iron, and I linked it below. It's really cool, I have to say. Check out how it lifts, so you don't burn anything. Now on the other side, I'm going to repeat. It's pressed in place, and eventually this is what my collar is going to look like from the outside and when it's complete. But what I'm going to do first is I want to finish off the ends. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this right sides together. This is my right side. This is my wrong side with the opening. I'm just going to keep them together like this. I don't even need a pin. I'm going to go over to my sewing machine. I won't even bring you over because it's so easy. I am going to sew 1/4 inch away from the edge here. If you need, you could even mark it. I'm just going to sew straight down and back. Same thing on this end, and I'll show you why. You see, I've sewn across. I had blue in my bobbin. I just left it. I'm not picky with certain things, so I'm going to trim off a little bit closer to the seam. And then I'm going to turn this right sides out. So now my edge is nice and finished. See that? Same here. And now what I'm going to do is push this all inside and press it so that it stays down this way. See, all I'm doing is folding it over, wrong sides in, so the right sides face out. And as I do that, I'm going to press. I may have to use straight pins to hold it together, or even clips. Let's see. I just keep pressing as I move towards the end. And if you have this edge here sticking out, that little bit, you probably won't even see it when it's sewn in place, but if it bothers you, you could stuff it in. And I say you in case you're following along or you're planning on making this as well. So I guess it's cool that I went with the stretch because my dog collar has a little stretch to it. All right, not bad. All right, so here's what we're going to do next. I'm going to go over to my sewing machine. I'll take you along with me, and I'm going to sew down the very edge, one edge, down this edge, and I may decide to actually do one in the center if I feel it needs to be a little stiffer. Let's see. Let's see what I decide. Now for this part, I am referring to my pictures. So I'm slipping on the metal D-ring and the female end of the clasp. And then you'll see I'm going to fold over just a bit of the collar down, and off camera, I'm going to make just a simple stitch all the way down and back stitch over it like 2 or 3 times. So it's nice and strong, just like this. And here's how we're going to do the opposite end or the male end. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to slip on the adjuster, strap adjuster to be exact, right? So once it's slipped in, if I got this right, I'm telling you, I had to really carefully look at the pictures and study it because it's a little different from the other things I made. So this is the this is my good side, my right side of my collar, and the one with the blue stitching I know is my wrong side or the underside. So this here, the top here has to feed through that way, and that's under. That's how I know it's right. Right? So I'm going to loosen this up a little because I need to refeed this back through there. I need to do it from under. All right, I'll show you exactly what that means. But before I do that, I need to slip this male end of this clasp on here. So I needed a tool to help me push it through. I'm going to use a seam ripper, totally not the tool to use because it could rip. I shouldn't laugh, but it could rip my fabric, right? So this is on, but before I do anything right sides together, I make sure it lines up and it's correct. Yeah, it has the curve. I see it's correct. The black clip, I mean, has the curve. So that's the correct way. I always double check. You never know. We all make mistakes. We're all human. So what you want to do now, if you're following along, is you want to refeed this through. Okay, I need to put it through here and out here. So I'm gonna, this is why I keep a big loop here. I'm gonna push this end through. You need something to help you push it through. If you're and you're doing this and your collar isn't that thick, it'll go right through. So I need to pull it right through. Here we go. It's fine. I can mess up my manicure because I'm already missing a finger. Can't show it to you because it seemed like I'm giving you the finger. I'm using what's called a bodkin right here. And I'm going to just pull this end through. A bodkin is used to pull like elastic or turn long casings like a scrunchie right side out. I'm sure it's used for other things, but that's why I have one. I linked it below if you want one. I love this thing when sewing. So I put it through this end, and now I got to feed it through that end or that space as well. Just a little challenging, not terrible, nothing to give up on. Here we go. Now I'm going to use and I had issues with my sewing machine, as you can see there. I did a back stitch and it got a little messy. If you're a sewer, you know what I mean. Sometimes that happens. I didn't fix it because I know it's going to be sewn right onto the collar and you won't see it. So what I'm doing is trying to, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this. This is when my common sense says don't do that. I won't. I'll stop. I'll use the bodkin. Here we go. Perfect. So challenging part is officially over. So now it works, right? The adjusting part works. So before I do any sewing down or my last stitch, I need to make sure I've adjusted it correctly. This is what I mean. I'm going to pull this so that this ends up at the edge as much as I can, because the whole point of doing this was to get a bigger or longer collar. I mean, I can sew this down now and call it a day, but I'm giving up that space. Meaning my dog's not getting bigger because she's at her total growth peak. She's done. But I just want to use this since I went through the time and took the time to make it. I'm deciding what I need to do to push this through. So if you're not understanding what I'm doing is I'm trying to get this male end of this clasp as close to this end of the strap as possible. And that's totally it. So before I sew it down, I want to make sure it works. All right, if I sewed it down like this, I would have gotten nowhere. Here's why. It can't move. So let me lift it up a little. Okay. I just went and fit this on my dog and it fits around her neck. So I'm going to sew this in place. Again, I'm going to go over to my sewing machine and just do a back and forth stitch. I could even do like a box square with an X in it, whatever. You know what? I'll possibly do two stitches. All right. I told you this was a challenge for me, but I realized I told you the wrong place. What you have to do is actually sew this edge onto here, this part right here. Because then if you do it the other way that I showed you, it will not move. The adjuster totally has no function. So this edge here gets sewn down to here. It is a challenge, but I'm going to get it done. And I will take you to the machine as I do that. And I will go back and forth a few times. All right, now my adjuster will work. And of course, you don't even need the adjuster. If you feel like I'm just going to make a dog collar for your dog and you don't need it to adjust because you made it the exact size, get rid of it. But mine's there because I had to challenge myself and make things difficult. All right, let's go to my machine. All right, it's done. I can't believe it. The only challenging part for me was this part here, the feeding through, but it's totally done. And I can't believe it. It came out really cute or pretty or whatever. Anyway, let's go try it on Poochie and see how adorable she looks in it. And it fits like a charm. I mean, seriously, it looks like I bought it at the pet store. Anyway, if you really love creating stuff for your dog and all kinds of dog DIY videos, go ahead and check out my other videos right up here on the screen. And don't forget to subscribe and give this video a like. Thanks for watching.